Good afternoon. I hope you had a really good day with Mr. Cook today, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Gotta rock out the bunny ears again because we have one more week till Easter. I can't wait. So excited for that Easter bunny. He's always so good to me. Anyway, we're gonna look at our quadratic formulas again, and this time we want to look at it and it in its contextual way. A contextual way means looking at it in the situation that it's given. So normally, looking at this, you have a quiz on next week on this. First, if we were just going to fill in all of these, types of information about the quadratic, we could definitely say that the y-intercept is at 25. So up here we would have 0, 25. And then our vertex is at the same spot at the very top. So it's 0, 25. It goes down, so it has a top. So its maximum is 25. The line of symmetry that cuts it straight through the middle is the y-axis. So that's going to be x equals 0. Just a vertical line. We learned about the zeros yesterday. The zeros are here at negative 2.5 and here at 2. So we would say negative 2.5 is one of the x-intercepts, and 2 are my zeros. The domain is it goes forever in each direction. So that's going to be negative infinity to positive infinity. It goes left and right forever. And the range, the top is 25 and it goes down forever. So we would say y is less than 25. So that's how we would just figure out all these different pieces of information about the parabola. Now, when we're talking about contextual, we're talking about the problem situation. So we need to read this problem. We're talking about a coconut and it falls from a palm tree branch that's 25 feet above the ground. It can be modeled by this function. So this is my equation of my parabola, where f of t is the height of the coconut and t is the time. So we know this is the height right here, and now t is the time it takes to go from the tree to the ground. So when we're looking at the contextual part of this problem, when we look at our parabola, the x-axis is time. Well, if we look here, that says -1 second, -2 seconds, -3 seconds. In real life, you can't have negative seconds. So in the contextual part of the problem, we can't look at negative time. So we basically are going to cut it where at 0 seconds and not even look at that part of the graph, because it's impossible to have a -2 seconds. We know that the branch of the tree is 25 feet. So we know at this point, this is the top of the tree, and this is where the coconut's being dropped. I spelled coconut wrong. Coconut. Okay, so here's my coconut, and it's being dropped. And then, again, we can't have negative height. The y is the height. So we can't have a -5 feet and -10 feet. So again, we're going to look at this graph this way, and we're going to not look at any part here because it's impossible to have negative feet. Here is seconds, and this is feet. This is 5 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet, 25 feet. And here we have seconds, 0 seconds, half a second, 1 second, 1.5 seconds, and 2 seconds. So basically the contextual part of this problem is we can only look at the quadrant 1 because you can only have positive height and you can only have positive time. Okay, so the coconut's at 25 feet and it drops and hits the ground. So this must be the ground. So it hits the ground, that looks like at 1.25 seconds, 1.25, because this is 1, this is 1.5, so this must be 1.25. Most of these questions are going to ask you, like, at what time will the coconut hit the ground? Or what height will the coconut be at 1 second? So if we look up here, at 1 second, it's about 10 feet. Okay? Or you could say, 20 feet, how much time has passed. So at 20 feet, half a second has passed. Okay. But mostly when we're talking about contextual problems, the only one of these things that's really going to change is the domain. Because as we say, the domain is the x, and we can't have negative time. So our domain is going to happen between here and here. That's the x-axis, right? And this is seconds. So between 0 seconds and 1.25 seconds. So basically that means the coconut, we dropped it at 0, started dropping it at 0 seconds, and then it hit at 1.25 seconds. So here we would say x is greater than 0 seconds, and x is less than 1.25 seconds. So basically we're saying our x values are only between 0 and 1.25 in the context of the question. Okay, so the coconut was dropped at 0 seconds, hit at 1.25 seconds. We can also write this in compound, which we did a little earlier later on. We put that x in the middle, and then we have the 1 is less than 1.25, and then we read it to the right and say it's greater than 0. So compact form. Okay, and the range is going to change also. It drops from 25 feet and then it hits the ground, which is 0 feet. So for the range, we would say the range is, or the y, is less than 25, but y is greater than 0. And again, we can write that in compact form, right? Y is greater than 0, but y is less than 25. Okay, so I know that's probably a little confusing, and we're going to work on this some more for several days. But basically, the idea I want you to come around with is that when you're looking at the context of the question, most likely you're only going to look at the first quadrant. And again, the reason being you can't have negative height, which is the y-axis, and you can't have negative time, which is the x-axis. So we're only looking at positive time and positive height. And then we're going to have to get good at interpreting different parts of this parabola. And then we also need to find the difference between the domain of the parabola and the domain of the contextual situation, or the domain of what's actually happening. So, you know, the coconut, we started at 0 seconds and it hit the ground at 1.25 seconds. So my x values or time are between here. And then again, the height was at 25 and then it dropped and hit the ground. So my range is between 25 and 0. Okay, and we're going to spend a little bit more time with that. So just come in with your notes tomorrow. I wonder, is my face in the way of this? Probably is, isn't it? Darn it. Keep forgetting about that. Let me see. Let me raise this up a little bit so maybe you can get the bottom part. Here we go. Okay, so this should be my head, I hope. So we have our zeros, but the domain again is between 0 and 1.25 seconds. So it's 0 is greater than, x is greater than 0, x is less than 1.25 seconds. Or we can write in compact form. X is less than 1.25 and x is greater than 0. And again, with the range, it dropped from 25 to 0. So it was x is less than 25 feet. And we could actually say equals to on that one. I missed that because it was actually there. And then it actually hits the ground. So we actually should have equals to in here now that I'm thinking about it. Hopefully my head's not in the way. And we probably should have it up here too. So actually start at 0 and then actually hit at 1.25. So it actually includes those numbers. Glad we went back over that. Okay. So so make sure that you have all your notes correctly, and then we'll go over it tomorrow. Have a great night.